Welcome to Mock 10 Sports in this August 24th, 2023 episode. Apologize. August 24th, 2023 episode. We have SEC football this weekend, guys. Give it up for yourself. We have officially made it. We are officially made it. If you're not Jack, I don't know what's wrong with you. You better check the polls. But you know what that means. We got our first SEC matchup this week. That means we got our first matchup breakdown. That's with the Hawaii Warriors traveling to the Music City to face Clark Lee and his Vanderbilt Commodores. The return trip for Hawaii. I believe Hawaii got there yesterday, but we will break that matchup down for you. Defensive tackle, as you probably saw, Maason Smith will be suspended for that Sunday night game of Labor Day weekend against Florida State. So essentially, Maason Smith will never really play against Florida State except a play or a series. I forget exactly what play he went down against Florida State last year in the Dome, but it was the first series. But he is suspended. I think it's kind of backwards in my opinion, but I don't work for the NCAA, but I will give you my thoughts. If you're an NCAA representative, you probably don't want to be listening in, but I'll give you those thoughts here in just a second. Georgia's running back room starting to look like a mass unit out there. It's starting to look like a very injured unit, and we haven't even played a game yet. We will discuss losing Branson Robinson, the sophomore, for the season. Kirby Smart announced with a patella tendon injury. We'll get to some other guys too. Kendall Milton a little banged up. Dacian Edwards a little banged up. We'll get to that in just a minute. Then we'll have another guest. We'll have Mike Gittins from the War Rapport. He's going to come on, give us his thoughts on the Auburn Tigers as we approach game week. And then I'm sure as most of you watched, starting at Monday at midnight, Tuesday morning, whenever you got a chance to watch. But the Swamp Kings documentary on Tuesday, it was released by Netflix, the 4-part series. I thought it was pretty good. It's gotten bad reviews. I wouldn't say I'm as harsh as some other people, but I think I had realistic expectations. We're realistic on this show. I didn't think it'd be an end-all, be-all, tell-all, whatever you want to call it, from that 06 to 2010 campaign with Urban Meyer. But I thought they gave you enough. Could it have been better? Absolutely. But I will give you my thoughts on that. But before we do, let's shoot the old email here to our guest, Mike Gittins, coming over from the War Rapport. I'm going to give you that. Sending him the link right now. And then we will get started. But yes, college football this week, guys. We made it. We made it. Everybody should give themselves a pat on the back and be grateful we made it. I mean, it's not week one. I've always thought there should be a little bit more of sexy matchups on week 0, like they did a couple years ago. I think in 2019 against Florida, or Florida, Miami, and Orlando happened to be, or randomly enough. They should always have a big matchup on week 0. And that's not an offense. There's no offense to Navy, Notre Dame, Hawaii, Vanderbilt, USC, San Jose State, the teams that will be playing at week 0. That is not a shot at them, just a key matchup. But again, these ADs trying to get their coaches on board doing that, starting camp early. Week 0s are always ugly games. I get why they would. But first things first, let's get to some stuff around the league. I mentioned it, unless you've been living under a rock here the last 24 hours. LSU defensive tackle Maason Smith suspended by the NCAA for the Florida State game. I got the update right here. Update. Multiple sources have confirmed Maason Smith and Kayshon Boutte, the wide receiver from LSU's past year, participated in an autograph signing in the summer of 21 prior to NIL going live. And for people who don't know, NIL went live July 1st, 2021. July 1st, 2021. So they probably did this in May, June, just a month or 2 weeks before this NIL went into effect. But Boutte, I'm going to keep calling him Boutte. Boutte served a 1-game suspension during the 22 season. He missed the New Mexico game last year for the birth of his son, and then the UAB game, what Brian Kelly said was a flu. Smith would have served his suspension last year, but remember, he was out for the year. Tore his ACL against Florida State game 1. The NCAA made LSU aware Smith would serve the suspension in the season opener earlier this year. So LSU knew about this, but apparently the guy that they did these autograph signings turned on Kayshon Boutte. And this is where this got back to LSU. Sounds like LSU has known about this, like I mentioned, and I'm sure they've had a plan. People talk about the appeal process. Scott Woodward's a smart guy, a politician at heart. He's probably gone through this. If there was a chance for them to get uphill, he would have done it. While some say, why should he sit out after missing the whole year with an injury? I get it from an NCAA standpoint here before I go all in on the NCAA here. I get it. I get why they don't see it that way, because they're like, well, he missed his whole season last year because of an injury, not because of a suspension. So the NCAA's eyes, that would make no sense. I see a lot of people on social media posting, why should he miss a game if he missed the whole season last year? We didn't miss the whole season last year because of the NCAA stuff. He missed it because of an injury. So the NCAA doesn't see that. But LSU fans are emotional about this, and they should be. They should be upset. But I don't have emotions towards LSU from that standpoint. They're a team I cover on this show, a team I've kept up with my entire life. But I have to agree with them. This is complete crap. This is complete crap across the board by the NCAA. And I understand the NCAA trying to punish someone for this because they still feel like these are one of the few powerful things they have. I mean, NIL, they just continue to kick that can down the road. They have no backbone when it becomes to name, image, likeness. The transfer portal, that's all but gone. That's out of their control now. They have no control over that. So name, image, likeness, transfer portal, no control anymore. So this is one of those things they can flex their muscles with. They can still flex their muscle. This is the rare incident where two student athletes, one being former, because Kayshon Boutte's gone. He's gone. Obviously, we still got Maason Smith. He's going to be the one that's missing the Florida State game. So they still felt like, hey, we could probably punish someone. I know this was in a couple of weeks before NIL really hit officially that July 1st, 2021 date. So remember, these autograph sessions were happening I roughly have heard a couple of weeks. So May, June, give or take. But remember, July 1st, 2021 is the key date to keep in the back of your mind because that's when name, image, likeness went into effect. But if I'm LSU, I wouldn't accept this penalty. The NCAA is an organization with no teeth. They have no teeth, no bite anymore. At best, you know what? I'm suspending him against Grambling State or Army in week 9 or 10, the week before their bye week. They play Army. Whoever scheduled that, I don't know. But if I'm LSU, yeah, I'll give him the 1-game suspension, but it's going to be against Grambling State week 2. It's going to be against Grambling State week 2. No, I am not listening to the NCAA on this. It makes no sense in a time where he is getting suspended for his name, image, likeness, signing autographs, prying those plastered white ball. You see the white parts on the balls with the football, and there's the part on the white you can sign that you see, or maybe signing some of those mini helmets, or maybe a big helmet. Who the hell knows? But he literally is getting suspended in a top 2 or 3 game. Not that the NCAA cares about how tough the game is. For LSU this year, this isn't as big a make-or-break playoff game for LSU or Florida State as people are making it out to be. It's important. You're in a driver's seat with the win, but if you're eliminated, just like LSU proved last year, you're not out of it. But for him to get suspended for something that literally is a rule in place now, and I understand when people are like, well, it was the rules then. It was 2 or 3 weeks, and again, the NCAA has no leverage. They have no body. Don't do anything. If I'm LSU and Scott Woodward, he is suspended against Grambling State, not against Florida State. In the NCAA, what the hell are you going to do about it? I dare you to come after me. You're a dying organization. No one gives a crap about you. So this whole Maason Smith stuff, it's just the NCAA. The NCAA is an organization. It's just a complete clown show. It's a complete clown show. It's just a circus full of clowns. This is ridiculous. Maason Smith should not be suspended. At worst, I'm telling you, some people may not have the gonads, the you-know-what's to do it. But if I'm the AD, maybe I'm wrong here. If I'm Scott Woodward, I'm suspending him for the Grambling State game. Or maybe the Army game. Hell, I don't by the time that's right for the bye week for the big Alabama game, probably for the division. No, and like I said, who scheduled Army? No one wants to play those teams. They cut defensive linemen, do not want to play offensive linemen in that offensive system, the triple option. No one wants to see that. I'm suspending him against a lesser opponent. And I'm making a mockery of the NCAA. I'm giving you the finger. I'm giving you the finger, for a lack of a better term. This is just the stuff that pisses me off. We're more worried about this than actually fixing stuff that can better the student athletes. It's total horse crap. This is ridiculous. Maason Smith should be playing next Sunday against Florida State. And again, like I said, Scott Wood probably won't do it, but he would be suspended the next week, the first home game against Grambling State. That would be the punishment. That would be the punishment. But we got other stuff to cover on the show. We got other stuff to cover. I could talk about that all day. But moving on, a little bit on the field stuff here. Georgia may have some depth issues in the backfield here. Kirby Smart announced on Wednesday that sophomore running back Branton Robinson will be out for the year after rupturing his patella tendon in his knee. Also, add in the factor, Kendall Milton and Dejon Edwards are both banged up. They haven't been practicing. So this is going to go down. Guys like Cash Jones, Tennessee transfer, Laneith Whitehead, and Athens Academy kid are probably going to have to step up and carry some of the load. Now, this room we've always known. I never really thought this room had a dude in it. I've never been totally sold on Kendall Melton, solid running back. He's always just kind of a little bit nicked up. You add in Dejon Edwards is a little hurt too. I don't think there's going to be I never thought a dude would arise out of this, but I'm very confident now. But again, I think one of these guys like Cash Jones or Laneith Whitehead are going to have to step up and provide some more depth, bring the floor up in that room. It's definitely going to be a by committee approach, but we may just be having a little bit of a panel, and I don't even know if it'll be a full committee. We got to keep guys healthy. Now, again, some people are like, well, Georgia, their biggest concern now is just their running back room. Oh, poor Georgia with their schedule to be able to move. Again, but this may not rear its ugly head until they go to Knoxville. Until they go to, let's just say, the SEC championship in Atlanta or the first round semifinal playoffs either in New Orleans or Pasadena. It's gonna be stuff like that. Or the national championship. You just don't know when it's gonna rear its ugly head. But again, Georgia has some running back depth issues. Let's don't sound the alarm. Georgia's in trouble this year. It's just something to keep an eye on. People have always questioned, talking to people in the building at Georgia, they weren't overly ever that high on Kendall Melton. But just an overall depth standpoint, top 3 guys are beat up right now and one's out for the season. Moving on to another topic, just want to remind you as we are heading in to start the college football season, week 0, just a reminder, clock rules, new reminder. I'm going through it right now. We're going to go rule, forgive me right here. I'm going to go real fast. I'm going to share the screen here. Just so you can see it. There it is right here. All right, so stopping and starting the clock, first downs. Remember, when you're betting, I'm going to give you the betting picks at the end of the show after the Mike G interview. But keep this in mind. There are not going to be as many comebacks. Giving up a lot of points in lines now. There aren't going to be as many plays. I'm reading it for you here. Rule 332E1, stopping and starting the clock, first downs. When Team A, the offense, gains a first down, the clock will no longer be stopped to award a first down, except with less than 2 minutes remaining in the second and fourth quarters. This change obviously will be immediately effective for this year. So it's just going to be a lot like NFL rules. A lot like NFL rules here. That's really where we stand right now from that perspective. So we want to keep in mind, bring that up real fast as we keep getting deeper in the show. Remember, a lot of people don't – I was talking to a guy at a program, and he didn't realize that was even a new rule. That's going to shorten some games. You're not going to have any Mississippi States coming back from 28-3 like they did against Auburn last year. There's not going to be enough plays. That's why I like some of these unders opening up the week 0 season. But moving on, as I'm sure you saw, the Swamp King thoughts. First of all, it seems like a lot of people weren't overly fired up about it. This was the same group that did the Untold Johnny Manziel documentary. Left a lot of stuff out, though. But I actually thought this one was a lot better than the way the Manziel one was portrayed. This wasn't going to be some public execution of Urban Meyer, and it seems like a lot of people kind of wanted it to be that, or they thought it was more of like kind of a kissing Urban Meyer's tail. But hell, the guy helped produce the show, I believe, so it wasn't going to really paint him in a bad light. It seemed like they still they filmed some of it when he was still in Jacksonville. You could tell the backdrop with the bridge in the background, some of the teal attire he was wearing. So this was done a little bit a while ago, but he was involved, so you couldn't anticipate this was going to be a public execution of Urban Meyer. I know a lot of people don't like Urban Meyer. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan, but I wasn't going into it looking for it to be a public execution of it. But did this documentary, the 4-part doc that Netflix put together, the Untold docs, where they also did the Manti Te'o one as well, did it hit its full potential? I'm going to say no, but at the very least, you got some nostalgia on one of the most interesting dynasties in the SEC's history. I'm going to talk about some few key points here. How this culture was built. The program that Urban Meyer built could not be done today. Half your team would be in the transfer portal, 40, 50, 60 dudes. It'd be looking like something Dion had to inherit at Colorado. It was a classic. You were either in the penthouse or the outhouse. He talked about multiple times treating his superstars like superstars and his crap like crap. If you were a superstar, you got grade A meal, steak, your own personal waiter. If you were crap, you got hamburgers and hot dogs. It's kind of like a coach told me one time. It's the turd to talent ratio, explaining Urban Meyer went to the full T, and I actually think Jimbo Fisher was the one who brought this up. that to his first year at A&M with it. Turn to talent ratio. I posted it on social media real quick. It's how good you are determines how much coaches are willing to put up with your crap Monday through Friday. Maybe you can throw in Sunday, the day after the game. If you're that good, you have a lot more leash for them to put up with your crap going to class, going to study hall, just in general. Maybe some failed drug tests. I don't know, some off. It's just they're more willing to put up with your crap. And Urban Meyer, to a T, simplified that off this documentary. I mean, personally, I do not think this style is sustainable in today's time. Saw in the last episode where you even saw some of the players get tired of the Tebow stuff. You also notice a lot of them weren't huge fans of the overall Urban Meyer culture, so they would never wish their kids to be a part of that. But Florida high school kids in general are just a very competitive bunch of guys. And football is what a lot of these guys have. It's their way to get out. It's their way to go make money as professionals. Working in that state twice. Those Florida kids, the high school kids in Florida, football is everything. They love it. Just competitive nature. And you saw that in the mat drills in the first episode. I thought the first episode was the best episode they had. I thought the first and fourth episode was the best episode of this Swamp Kings documentary. But this was a true eat or be eaten mentality. And I think a lot of Florida high school kids have that because they see it as their ability to get out of maybe their situation they had growing up. They're a very competitive bunch. Kids you recruit, they love football, raw prospects, but they really love competing in just the sport of football overall. So it was interesting seeing how the culture was built with Urban Meyer at Florida. But next, another interesting perspective that you didn't really see a lot was just Chris Leak. And if you don't know who Chris Leak was the quarterback in the 2006 Florida National Championship team. I believe a 2003 kid at an Independence High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. I vaguely remember him. I vaguely remember him his recruitment. I remember him obviously as a player, but he was recruited when I was in middle school, and just an overall, just dude, really underrated player in the SEC's history. I mean, I would have loved to hear his perspective on the 2006 season. That was not a normal quarterback situation, and hearing it from his side would have shed a different light on it. I mean, it had to be a little interesting. Urban Meyer bringing in the freshman Tim Tebow when Chris Leak was kind of that dude. You could tell. I mean, I even saw Cam Newton posted something saying like Chris Leak. I mean, he was that dude, and he was. If you really followed Chris Leak's career, he was. I mean, like I mentioned, number one quarterback in the 02 or 03 class that Ron Zook signed from Independence High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had a chance to meet him once when I was working at UCF. He brought some kids over. Really down-to-earth, nice dude. But I wish he would have been in it. I'd have loved to hear his perspective on handling that two-quarterback situation, especially as a senior when he was giving the rock over to a true freshman in some key opportune times. Remember, trying to convert that fourth down against Tennessee on the road. How did that make him feel? But it seemed like, I mean, heck, they hoisted the trophy. They hoisted the crystal ball, which I don't know why we don't go back to that crystal ball trophy, the BCS National Title Trophy. It's the best. It's better than the college playoff trophy. Conversation for another day. But wish I would have seen Chris Leak more. Another point, the Tim Tebow recruitment came down to Florida and Alabama. Class of 2006, Urban Meyer versus Mike Shula, the infamous Mike Shula slumber party, stay the night at the Tebow house. It changed the entire sport. I mean, think about it. If Tim Tebow goes to Alabama, Mike Shula probably survives another year in 06 before he gets fired. They probably give him at least another year for sure. Urban Meyer even openly states he probably gets let go. I mean, look at his record without Tim Tebow in the team. He probably ultimately ends up letting go or gets let go. Nick Saban doesn't come to Alabama. He probably either stays with the Dolphins. Maybe Florida opens up. Nick Saban's at Florida, and you're looking at Florida rolling off 6 national championships here in the last 16, 17 years. I mean, this changed college football forever. This single recruitment, Tim Tebow, coming down to Florida and Alabama. Alabama felt really good. His relationship with Mike Shula was very good. If Tim Tebow doesn't go to Florida, college football may look a little different right now. It may look a little different right now. Next thought I was interested in, the 2008 season. I think you could have made a documentary off this in itself. I mean, I may be in the minority here, but you could make a case that this 2008 Florida team, top 5 team of all time maybe. I mean, outside of LSU 19, Bama 20, Texas 05, and probably USC 04, this was the epitome of an Urban Meyer mentality-led squad. I mean, we're going to get the job done no matter what the cost was. I mean, you're dealing with a bunch of Florida kids where it was eat or be eaten, competitive kids. I mean, it was a true celebrate or embarrass mentality. I mean, by that point, the freshmen and sophomores on the 2006 team that won the national championship with Chris Leak and Brandon Seiler, these guys are juniors and seniors now. Spikes, Aaron Hernandez, Tim Tebow, Chris Rainey, Percy Harvin, guys like that. They've embraced that culture for a couple years. They could pass the Urban Meyer culture class with flying colors. I mean, the pressure Urban Meyer put on his players, coaches, and staff just made them sick to their stomach. I mean, Urban Meyer stated in the show he was nauseous during that 2008 SEC championship game against Alabama. I was there. That was one of the best environments I can ever remember. It was the first time ever we were like, man, this is a de facto semifinal game. Winner of this, undefeated Alabama versus number 2 Florida with one loss. Their only loss being to Ole Miss. We remember that. They talked about it. Winner goes to the national championship, faced Oklahoma or Texas, ended up being Oklahoma. The 2008 season, man, that Florida team, man, just their grit, their mentality. Tim Tebow, Brandon Spikes, those guys were not going to let them lose. They weren't. And then the 2009 season, finally, the pressure got to them, plain and simple. It just goes to show you how hard it is to stay motivated and stay focused at the top. That's going to be the issue Georgia's dealing with this year. It's Tebow's world, and we're just living in it. It seemed to affect the players a lot. I mean, Tim Tebow's quote, Alabama had nothing to lose, and we had everything to lose, was interesting because I know some former Alabama players took offense to that because Alabama was undefeated heading into that game. They had an SEC championship and a potential national championship bid to lose. So I thought that was a wrong statement by Tim Tebow. Florida thinking they would go beat Alabama again. I mean, Alabama kind of handled them and controlled that whole game. So I don't believe that. But it seemed like the 2009 season seemed more like an extended parade off the 2008 championship. They just didn't seem focused, weren't on the same page. You saw in Starkville, Brandon Spikes, Tim Tebow getting into it. They showed it. It just kind of seemed like, man, it's tough to maintain that. I mean, I picked Georgia to win the national championship. Running back room's getting older. What is the motivation? Georgia's challenge is Georgia's biggest challenge. They could take something off this Florida 2009 season. They could. But then before we wrap up, getting Mike G on here, things I would have liked to see. Wish they had gotten some more players that were during that era. The Chris Leak I mentioned, the Pouncey twins, Marquise and Mike, Riley Cooper, Joe Hayden, Percy Harvin. Would have loved to hear more of their side of the stories. Maybe gone in more detail on Urban initially retiring after 2009 and what made him ultimately come back for that last year. And what were those few months in December like? I mean, remember, he had to get rushed to the hospital. He said he thought he was dying. What were those kind of like? They didn't talk about that. How did that affect the 2010 team? I mean, their coach retires on them after going to the SEC championship game, ending that year. Tim Tebow and that 2006 class leave. What was kind of the feel in the offseason from, hey, man, our coach tried to leave us. Is he really bought in? I mean, they ended up going 8-5 in 2010. But again, I thought it was overall well done, real interesting. I got a lot more from it. Stuff you knew. But, I mean, would you really think it was? They're not going to – I thought the footage in the weight room was awesome. I thought the footage in the weight room at the beginning in episode 1 of the mat drills and them fighting, they're trying to revive a guy who got choked out. That was just that mentality. I thought that stuff was awesome. I don't understand all the negativity about it. Could it have been better? Sure, but you can make a case about that with a lot of things. But, hey, it got us through the week before this. Got us through a couple of days before we actually get real football is what we're hungry for starting in week 0. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things I thought about the Swamp Kings documentary. Probably thought it was a little better than a lot of people did. But let's move on over. Let's get our guy Mike G in here. I'm about to pull him up on the screen. Mike G, what up, baby?
Hey, what's going on, Dave?
Hey, man, I appreciate you joining us on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, and for everybody who doesn't know, again, it's Mike Giddens, co-founder and COO of the War Rapport, Auburn fan website. Hey, Mike, I started listening to y'all probably a couple months ago. Y'all just are y'all are laid back, real chill. Y'all give it real honest opinions, raw. It's not the suit type opinions that you would get. Y'all actually give real raw opinions. Y'all get players on. I love keeping up with y'all. Mike, if you want to tell the people who are not familiar with your stuff what the War Rapport is about, that would be awesome.
Look, thanks for that introduction, Dave. We do fan content essentially, and we try to do things that fans want to see. So, not a lot of people. I love giving my opinion, but I feel like people want to hear from players more. They want to hear stuff that the players have to say, things that they're actually thinking. And we try to give fans that content in addition to, again, our weekly opinion show. So we're media, but we're not standard media. We do things from a little bit of a different perspective. And hopefully we're giving fans a little taste of Auburn football in a way that they have not had in the past.
Absolutely. So, Mike, obviously, you got foot on the ground. People who've been paying attention. Hugh Freeze's first fall camp. What is the vibe, in your opinion, from people you're talking to after this first camp of Hugh Freeze's heading into the 2023 season at Auburn?
Belief. There's a lot of belief around this team, Dave. They believe that they're better than a lot of people think they are. Now, I'm sure every team thinks that going into the season. Auburn has a lot of talent. When you go back and you look at the blue chip ratio, it died some under Brian Harsin. But they still have a lot of talent on this team. I think it's been recognized. And then Hugh Freeze went and he filled holes, right? He went after offensive linemen. If you've been following this team, you know how poorly they did recruiting offensive linemen out of high school, like one since 2017 before Hugh Freeze arrived or something crazy like that. Yep. So it's or offensive tackles. It's one of those things where you can't win in this league without dynamic quarterback play and a good line these days, right? And if you don't have the line, your quarterback better be otherworldly. He better be Bryce Young good. So Hugh Freeze, I don't think he has that in year one. And he understood that he had to go out and bolster this line. He's going to find any success. I think that he did that, and it's injected a lot of belief into the program about what they can do. And historically, Auburn is best when everybody thinks they're not going to do anything. So if you believe in the superstition, they're due for a national title.
For sure. Well, it's a position group. I've been paying attention to the fall camp stuff just like you. What is a position group you think on the Plains this year that's not really being talked about nationally? It's a little bit of an underrated position group.
It's 100% running back. Look, Jarquez Hunter is a good running back, but if you go back, I'm sure you were at media days just like I was. He got left off of the he should have been second team All SEC if you ask me, at the very least. I think that he has first team All SEC talent. No shade to Quinshawn Judkins. He is the real deal. But Jarquez Hunter is being slept on here. And then behind him, Damari Alston and Brian Batty, the transfer from USF. These guys are going to be hell on the SEC. I believe Auburn has a top 3 running back room in the SEC this year. And behind an improved offensive line, fans are going to be surprised that there's not going to be much of a fall off from Jarquez Hunter to Damari Alston to Brian Batty. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those guys can do on the field. And I think, by the time they start SEC play, people will be taking notice nationally of how good that running back room really is.
Definitely. That leads me to my next question. Staying on offense, Hugh Freeze obviously named Michigan State transfer Peyton Thorne the starter. How do you think Robbie Ashford will be utilized, if at all, this year?
He will absolutely be utilized. And this is Hugh Freeze. What I love about Hugh Freeze is he doesn't give us a ton of coach speak. He says exactly what he's thinking, or he won't answer your question at all. So, what we've learned is that he understands Robbie Ashford is a different talent and that you have to utilize him in some kind of way. He was very clear on why Peyton Thorne won the job. It was primarily leadership. And then he followed it up by saying, if he handles this the right way, if he does the right things, there's no way for us to keep him off the field. Yeah. So if you're Robbie Ashford, you have to understand that, 50% of the teams in the SEC went to their backup quarterback to start an entire game last season in meaningful duty, right? And that includes Alabama, man. Bryce Young had to take a sheet. Jalen Milroy had to come in and win a game for them. Yeah. So you have to stay ready if you're him. And I think Hugh Freeze understands that one of the best ways to keep your backup engaged, especially when he has the type of talent Robbie Ashford has, is to get him some packages and get him some plays on the field. He said it. The coach has said he can help us win. Robbie, you can help us win. And he said that very publicly. His role could expand. Guys, I don't know how else to say it. I think that Peyton Thorne is very capable. He immediately raises the floor in that QB room. So bringing him in was a success for Hugh Freeze because it caused the guys to raise their game. Last year, they threw for 2,000 yards. Dave, Auburn has had 3,000-yard passers in the whole history of the program. Yeah. In the whole history, right? Peyton Thorne threw for, he raises that floor to 2,800, which is prolific by Auburn standards. And if you're Robbie Ashford, you got to get somewhere close to that with your arm if you expect to see significant time on the field and eventually supplant Peyton Thorne, if that's even possible. So he's got to stay ready. I think he's going to have packages to keep him engaged, and Robbie Ashford is going to help this team this year.
Oh, Mike, I absolutely agree. I actually don't think Peyton Thorne's going to be any of the – I think Auburn's quarterback play is going to be better than people think. I don't think that's really going to be I think he's going to come down to both lines of scrimmage. And speaking of that, brings up my next question. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. How much improvement? Because this was a unit, I believe, rush defense that gave up, 170 yards on the ground 6 times or more in half their games last year? It's some stat. It's similar to that. How much improvement can you see or do you expect to see from the run defense this year?
Oof, that's a tough question, Dave. I'm worried. I'm worried about the run defense. I think that Hugh Freeze said an interesting thing about the scrimmages, right? It's hard to come away with a good feeling one way or the other when one group excels.
Mm-hmm.
So they excel at running the ball, but is our run game that good or is our run defense that bad? There's probably some truth on both sides of that. And they're not sure where it's at. I'm telling you right now, if you ask those guys in our conversation with those guys, they understand that's an area that they need to improve and quickly. So you got at least 2 cupcakes to start the season. You got Cal sandwiched in between them. And you've got to figure out what kind of, grit you're going to have in run defense quickly before SEC play starts against Texas A&M on the road. So it's a worry. Improvement, I don't know if they've improved. I don't think they know if they've improved. I know they have work to do, but it's certainly going to be an area to watch Auburn this year to see if they can stop the run. It's going to be hard for you in this league if you can't stop the run. You allow other teams to control the clock. Hugh Freeze wants the ball in his quarterback's hands, and they're going to have to find a way to get that ball back to their offense.
Yeah, and I was looking it up when I was doing my Auburn preview. Something like, I think to be in the top 50 in rush defense last year, I think it was like giving up maybe 100. I think the 50th ranked team was 100, averaging 140 yards a game. So, man, if Auburn could just improve to just being 140, 145, the ceiling, because again, I don't think the schedule is very difficult. And I'm about to get to a schedule question here for you. I think the ceiling's 8 wins. 8. I mean, if you get you talked about it at the beginning of the show, Auburn, when you're thinking some expectations are down, they exceed maybe 9. Some things break their way and some teams aren't as good as they think. But it leads me to my next question here, Mike. What is, for Hugh Freeze's first year, his 2023 season, what is the must-win game on the schedule, in your opinion, that you think that he has to win to suffice for the Auburn fan base?
I think you got to beat Ole Miss. I think you have to beat Ole Miss. I don't think you can lose to Ole Miss. I think you should be superior to that team in every single way. And that's not a game that you should lose. And behind them, close second is Mississippi State. Look, you said it before, the schedule's tough, right? But it is the easiest, relatively speaking, schedule Auburn has had in the last decade, right?
For an SEC West schedule, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy by SEC West standards.
Yeah.
So Auburn has to take advantage of it. Honestly, I thought that this was a dream schedule for Hugh Freeze in his first year when I saw it. I was like, if any schedule set up for him to get off to a quick start, maybe even start with an SEC win, it was this schedule. I mean, they've had good luck in College Station. I think they can go down there and get the win. So if you've got things in the flow by game 4, I mean, you're starting the season hopefully at least 3-1. And then if you got it together, maybe 4-0. Now, as far as the schedule is concerned overall, Dave, right, the floor should be 6. $6 million a year. That's $1 million a win, baby.
You're 100% right.
And get 6 wins and get this team to a bowl game. There's no excuse for not making a bowl with this roster. I don't. They won 5 last year in a disaster.
No, 6. You're 100% right, Mike. 6 is the floor. Auburn's going to they should go to a bowl game unless they have some massive injury attrition thing. It's like you're rolling through guys playing offensive line that you never expected to play. But you said the schedule, you said you couldn't ask for a better schedule for a first-year head coach. And, Mike, again, appreciate you joining us here. Mike G from War Rapport. Last question, Mike. Again, appreciate your time. Is this the most confident? I know he hadn't even played a game yet. Technically, he's undefeated, 0-0. Recruiting is through the roof right now. Best Auburn's seen, I feel like, in a while. But is this the most confident you've been in the Auburn football program since? Is it too early to say Pat Dye, in your opinion?
I wouldn't go that far back because I was in school there during the Tuberville regime. We understood how much talent we had going into 2003 and even into 2004 with Ronnie and Cadillac at quarterback. Those guys decided to come back, and then Jason Campbell kind of came into his own. I'll say this. Recruiting is a different beast now than it was then. So the hope that is around the program that everybody feels starts with just that. Hugh Freeze went out and he recruited his ass off this offseason. And, I think most reasonable people understand you're not going to compete for a championship, in year 1. But without the Jimmies and the Joes 2 to 3 years from now, you're not going to compete then either. And so Hugh Freeze made a statement. He said, if we're not in the top 7 in recruiting by year 3, everybody here is going to be looking for a job. And he gets it. He gets that to beat Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, you have to have the guys on the field. Dave, those guys can afford to not be the best in-game managers because they go out and they get 5-star talent that can just go out and out-athlete everybody for the most part. And every once in a while, a coach will come in and they'll out-scheme one of those guys. But it's hard to do consistently unless you have dudes. Hugh Freeze is going out, man, and he's bordering on a top 10 class already. He's got 3 5-stars in this class. That's unprecedented at Auburn. So there's a lot of hope.
It flipped 2 good players already from Alabama. I mean, as you know, the Riddick kid and then the Thompson kid from Riddick from Georgia and Thompson from Alabama.
That's right. I think that Hugh Freeze is you bring him in primarily for recruiting. You have to build a program from high school. You're not going to build a successful program getting half your players from the portal. You got to get these kids out of high school, and you have to evaluate correctly, and they have to be the real deal. I think that Gus had a lot of good-looking classes on paper, but when it came down to it, the evaluation, either they were misevaluated or they were underdeveloped.
Yeah.
So you have.
I worked at Auburn in 2016, so we signed the 17 class there. Then I went to A&M. But yeah, you're right. The thing with Coach Malzahn and Harsin, like you said, just missing so much on offensive linemen. We used to talk about it when we were at Auburn. Yeah. That 2015-16 offensive line class they signed, I think it was like the Caleb Kim class. Not those guys, but like Tyler Carr. I don't think any of them ended up starting or having any meaningful snaps unless they were forced in due to injury. Like you said, you just cannot consistently miss like that. I'm like you. I think Hugh Freeze, I said it on Twitter probably a couple weeks ago, is the biggest recruiting threat to Nick Saban that he's ever had with an opposing coach at Auburn since he's been at Alabama.
Right. And interestingly enough, he owns 2 wins versus Saban.
Yeah.
2. Right. And we had a chance to interview him. I was like, Coach, you guys got jackets or special Dakota rings to get into your I Beat Nick Saban club? Because it's not a lot of people who have pulled this off. He has done it. So he was recruiting well at Ole Miss. He's got more resources at Auburn in the NIL era. They seem to have gotten their collective game together. So they know what they're doing with NIL now with Hugh Freeze at the helm. And Auburn, listen, Hugh Freeze has a chance to make Auburn a contender. Yep. Now, at the end of the day, you still got to go out on the field, Dave, and you got to play the games. You have to play the games. But it starts with the guys. And if he can go out and get the guys and he can, sell, year one is about putting proof of concept on the field, right? For those 25 and 26 classes as well, too. So they can see, year one, the pitch is, we need you early playing time. Come to Auburn. There's a spot. Yeah. Oh, you know what? After you've recruited enough of those guys, that can no longer be your pitch. Yeah. Nick Saban isn't selling playing time to kids. He's saying you have a chance to come here and compete. We're a champion. Check the trophy case. Right? When you come here, all I'm promising you is a chance to be the best. And if you leave here the best, you're going in the draft. Yep. And that's what Hugh Freeze has to accomplish. He has to be, on that upper echelon of coaches that can say to kids, if you come here and do the things you're supposed to be do, you're going to the NFL. That's the ultimate prize for every athlete. So I think Hugh Freeze is on track to do that.
It's funny you brought up Ole Miss, the Hugh Freeze, and talking about the biggest game on the schedule. I feel like Ole Miss fans on the radar would probably reciprocate that. Like that's kind of a big game for Lane Kiffin. I think with the way that whole situation was handled last year, him playing around, them kind of knowing he wanted to go to Auburn, but was messy. That may be under the radar the biggest game of the season in the conference. From like a standpoint of, man, dude, whoever loses this is going to feel really bad after this.
Ole Miss fans are trying to make this rivalry happen for sure. Yeah. If you follow them on Twitter, man, they're losing their minds about Auburn. They don't miss a chance to tweet about Auburn. Ultimately, what it comes down to is that he used to coach there. He left very unceremoniously. He made some mistakes, right? It seems as if he's learned from those mistakes. He's asked for a chance to earn fans' trust, right? And so far, you do that with doing your job, which is going out and recruiting. And when he fields his team against Ole Miss, we'll see if, Captain 4th and 1 can out-scheme Hugh Freeze. But I think they'll be pleasantly surprised that the talent on this team is not indicative of the record that they finished with last year. It's a much more talented team than a lot of people realize. And the proof of it will be that a lot of the guys that are going to be starting were here already. Yep. Right. And you'll see how much better a good scheme will make these players look. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I appreciate you joining us, guys. give Mike G the follow over there with the guys at the War Rapport. They do a great job. It's true. If you're an Auburn fan, I don't know why you wouldn't go listen to these guys. They bring players, like Mike mentioned. Everybody wants to hear the all-access stuff with the players. Mike, man, I appreciate you joining us, man. We'll have to get you back on here some other time, mid-season, talk a bit more Auburn. Heck, maybe the week of the Auburn Ole Miss game we can get you on, we'll be talking about it.
I'm game. Win or lose, Dave, I'm game to be on to talk about what happens.
No doubt, brother. Well, I appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you for taking the time.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Perfect. All right, Mike G joining us there, guys. Does a fantastic job covering the Auburn Tigers over there at the old War Rapport. Give him the follow over there at Mike Gittens. Does a fantastic job, like I mentioned. Fun interview. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Again, if you're on YouTube, give us the like and subscribe, guys. It's not that difficult. If you're a fan of the channel, I would truly and greatly appreciate that. And also, if you don't follow us yet, go follow us at Mach 10 Sports. Dave Shoemate is the name. Again, multiple years, 9 years in the director of player personnel role throughout college football. Worked at 4 different SEC schools, Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Enjoy bringing you this. But again, just if you're on YouTube right now, just click that little subscribe button. It is not difficult. And also give us a like, give us some comments, tell us where we can improve. But moving back over after Mike and his fantastic interview there, we're going to go next to, it's week 0, guys, which means we got an SEC game. I told you I was going to bring you down the breakdown. Vanderbilt versus Hawaii, the 6:30 p.m. Central Standard kickoff from the Music City in Nashville. This is a rematch from last season where Vandy went out, and for the most part, kind of did what they wanted to against the Warriors last year. Remember, this is Timmy Chang's second year at Hawaii. If you don't remember that, he was the quarterback, played at Hawaii under June Jones. Now, it may take a drive for Vandy to get used to the fun and gun Timmy Chang offense, especially with Vanderbilt's secondary problems. That's been publicized pretty well. I do expect them to settle in, though, at some point on defense and put Hawaii in some 3rd and long situations. Due to Hawaii, I don't think they're going to have a lot of success. I don't think the Warriors are going to have a lot of success running the ball against Vanderbilt up front. Offensively, I like the Commodores this year. I think they're going to be able to do what they want on offense. I know they lost Ray Davis, the running back, to Kentucky. And again, Vanderbilt's always going to have some question marks on the offensive line. I mean, even the best of the best teams have question marks on the offensive line, but especially a school like Vanderbilt. So you're never really going to know until you know. But the quarterback position, A.J. Swan, I like what he can do, man. I think he may be the most talented quarterback Vanderbilt may have had. It's crazy to say, but since Jay Cutler, highest upside. But I really like what Vanderbilt has on the outside to help A.J. Swan. I mean, you got Will Shepard, Quincy Skinner Jr., Jaden McCowan, and keep an eye on true freshman Junior Sherrill, the local kid from Lipscomb Academy. Those are some weapons that I do not think Hawaii will be able to keep up with. I think Vanderbilt wins this comfortably, but I am interested to see how the secondary handles a Timmy Chang offense. Apparently, the secondary has been getting lit up a lot this fall camp in Nashville for Vanderbilt. But is that due to their skill position, guys? I mean, Will Shepard, Quincy Skinner Jr., those are some real dudes. And I think, like I said, A.J. Swan, the most upside of a Vanderbilt quarterback since Jay Cutler. Call me crazy, but I really do believe it. But the real interest here for me is how does the Vanderbilt secondary handle an offense that's going to attack them and confidently attack them. So Timmy Chang wants to do. They want to up-tempo, take shots, and with the weakness being in the Vanderbilt secondary, they're not going to be shy to do it. Where this game will be won, remember that segment from last year. It's a little bit broad, but it's the first week, week 0. Vanderbilt's line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I know that's not a specific unit, but we're going to go in the trenches here. Vandy has the advantage, I think, on both sides of the line of scrimmage, not only in talent, but in size as well. Listen to this. Hear me out here. Hawaii's average offensive line, 6'2", 303 pounds. Vanderbilt's average defensive line, 6'4" and a quarter, 280.5 pounds. That Vanderbilt obviously going to give up some weight. There'd be an issue if Vanderbilt's defensive line was weighing more than Hawaii's offensive line. It's not that big of a Vanderbilt isn't that much bigger than, but it's length. I mean, 6'4" and a quarter, 280. Those are some longer dudes. I mean, obviously, it's not going to look like a Georgia defensive line or an LSU or an Alabama defensive line traditionally, but Vanderbilt is much longer. Therefore, they're going to get their hands inside Hawaii's shorter, smaller in stature, shorter in arms, the offensive line. On the other side of things, Vanderbilt's offensive line coming in at 6'5" and a quarter, 325 pounds on average. Hawaii's defensive line, this is the biggest difference right here. 6'2", 276 pounds is the average of the Hawaii defense. They're giving up a lot of weight there and a lot of length as well. I think Vanderbilt is going to establish the run here, throw off play action. I also think Hawaii, they may try to run against Vanderbilt, but they're not going to have a ton of success. I think it's going to put Hawaii in a lot of third and long situations they're not going to be real comfortable with. And this may not be at the beginning of the game. Hawaii, there's a difference between coming out with the top 25, top 30 script plays and having success off that, because you game plan, you scripted, you knew kind of the strengths and weaknesses. But when teams adjust, when you're done with your first 25, 30 plays, what's after that? Because that's when we're playing ball. It's like they kind of say, hey, we're playing off emotion through the first quarter, first 6 minutes, but then we're playing football. So I think after a while, after Vanderbilt adjust on defense, I can see Hawaii getting some yards to the air early, but after Clark Lee and Vanderbilt adjust on defense, they're going to be fine. And I think Vanderbilt is going to be able to do what they want on offense. I like this offense a lot. It's the best offense I think Clark Lee has had heading into his fourth season in Nashville. I think final score, if I had to predict, I'm going to go Vanderbilt 49-21, getting the 28-point win. The Vanderbilt line right now is Vanderbilt minus 17.5. I'm about to get to my gambling picks right after that, but I like Vanderbilt there along with another pick. So I got the Vanderbilt Commodores starting off 1-0. Hey, they'll be leading the SEC after week 0, baby. Atop the standings, 1-0. They'll be the only team with that one number in the win column. But I think this is just it's not a good matchup for Hawaii. I like Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's going to be, like I said, I got them predicted to finish last in the East. Something tells me they may get to 5. I don't see 6 yet because that secondary concerns me, and just the way their own offense tore them apart in the fall gives me some worries. But I don't think it's going to be a big concern in this game. I think the first time you're really going to see it for Vanderbilt, for them to be tested, will be that Wake Forest game in a couple weeks. But again, I think Vanderbilt at home, under the construction. If you're going to the game, bring your hard hat, because there's construction all over that place. But again, week 0, I'm fired up about it, but I look for the Doors to take care of business. Pull away similar to like they did in the first game last year. But again, the line 17.5, I like the Doors there, but I like Vanderbilt getting the 49-21 win. Now moving to the gambling picks starting this week. This is one of my favorite segments right here. But I'm going to give it not only just the SEC games. Obviously, we got other games to talk about. I'm going to give you some of those other picks here. This is the last segment of the show before we get out of here. You can go put your bets in, start saving for your kids' college fund. But first, I like Vanderbilt minus 17.5. I don't think that's enough. I like Vanderbilt to cover that pretty easily. And I also like the over of 55. I think Vanderbilt put up 60-something points last year with Mike Wright at quarterback. A.J. Swan's a much better deep ball threat than Mike Wright. Now, Mike Wright can make some plays with his leg. He's at Mississippi State now. I'm already transferred. But again, I like what A.J. Swan and those weapons on the outside can do. And I also think Vanderbilt's going to have some success up front on the offensive line running on the Warriors. So I like Vanderbilt minus 17.5, and I like the over for the game of 55. Feel real good about that. Then I'm going to go to Los Angeles, the USC San Jose State game. I like USC minus 18.5 at the first half. The game line is, I think they're giving San Jose State 30. But this is a Lincoln Riley type game if I've ever seen one. Load up on the Trojans here in the first half. I think they make a statement in week 0. This will be a game that USC tries to pour it on, looks good. They know a lot of eyeballs going to be on them because they're a Pac-12 favorite to win it. They're a playoff contender. But this is really going to come down to Alex Grinch and the defense. They need to start off the season with a bang, with especially a San Jose State defense or offense last year struggled to protect the passer. USC should be able to take advantage, and they should come out with a chip on their shoulder, at least in the first half, ready to silence the critics. That's why I like the minus 18.5 in the first half for USC to cover. I didn't take the 30 because you got to think, I don't trust USC's backups on defense in the second half. They could be up 37, 36, give up a touchdown late, 35, give up a touchdown late. I don't trust USC's defenses. I don't trust the USC backups on defense. And I also don't think Caleb Williams will be playing that much in the fourth quarter. So I'm taking the first half. I think the Trojans come out with a bang, hit San Jose State in the mouth. I think the defense is flying around. Just because they play well against San Jose State, I'm not going to be ready to say USC's defense is ready to go be a playoff team or win the Pac-12. But again, I think they come out firing. I like USC in the first half, 18.5. I just can't go with the 30. So I'm going to go with the first half. Feel confident in that one as well. So far we got Vandy minus 17.5, the over for the game 55. Feel awesome. Also, I'm taking the USC Trojans minus 18.5 in the first half. And then finally, my last game I'm taking, Notre Dame and Navy. I believe kickoff at 1:30 Central Standard Time Zone on NBC. It's going to be in Dublin, Ireland, Saturday afternoon. I think Notre Dame's favored by 20, but that is not what I'm talking about. I'm going with the under in this game, under 49. I think Al Golden and the Irish defense will keep the Navy offense in check. All offseason, they've had to prepare for this triple option. I think they're going to be fine. Offensively for Notre Dame, remember, Tommy Rees is at Alabama now. New OC Gerard Park and the new quarterback, the Wake Forest transfer, Sam Hartman, could be a little bit slow to start off. I mean, you cross the big lake, it is the Atlantic Ocean, you're over in Dublin. Could be a little bit of a tricky first game for both a new coordinator and a new quarterback with some new teammates. Got to get accustomed. I like Sam Hartman a lot. Like I said, this is an unusual environment for a new OC and his new teammates to start off. And remember, Notre Dame kept that Irish offense in check last year. Some different fire zone blitzes they brought in from the inside of the A-gaps. The Navy defensive coordinator is now the head coach. I forget his name. I'm sorry off the top of my head. But Navy held Notre Dame to just 1.9 yards per carry in the matchup in 22. Not really worried about Notre Dame losing this game. Don't really like the minus 20, but I do think this will be a low-scoring game. And factor in the midshipmen, run the football, and I talked about it, I pre-warned you, the new clock rules. Think about it. Less plays, triple option team, Navy, new OC, new quarterback for Notre Dame. They could be getting some kinks out of the offense. And there's already going to be limited snaps with a triple option offense, and you factor in the clock doesn't stop anymore after a first down unless it's at the end of halves. Kind of factor that in. So therefore, give me the under 49. So I'm confident. For no games being played, this may be the most confident I've ever been in a week 0 in my gambling bets. So again, I'm giving them out for free. You can thank me later when your kids graduate in Harvard. You saved money. He didn't get the full ride, the partial ride, but you know what? Mach 10 Sports son, he helped us pay for your college. You need to give him a tip of the cap. Just recapping the gambling picks for me this week. I like Vanderbilt giving up 17.5. That's not going to be enough. The doors cover easy. I like the over in the game completely. Vanderbilt may cover this. Over 55. Then we're going to go to Los Angeles. We're going to go out west. I like USC in the first half. Minus 18.5. I think obviously the offense comes out firing. I think Alex Grinch in the defense, at the very least, should have a chip on their shoulder because it's going to be up to them how well USC. If USC is a championship team, a playoff team this year, it's going to come down to Alex Grinch in that defense. 30 for the game, too much. I don't trust the backups for USC, and Caleb Williams will not be playing, but I love the first half. Minus 18.5 USC. And then finally, we're going to Dublin. We're going to cross the big pond. Notre Dame's giving up 20, but I don't like that one. I like the under 49. I think the Notre Dame defense and Al Golden are going to stifle the Navy triple option. But at the same time, Navy had success last year. Their defense coordinator is now the head coach. He had success against the Irish offense. I know they have a better quarterback. It's not Drew Pine anymore. It's Sam Hartman, one of the best transfer quarterback in the country. New OC Gerard Parker, who's the tight ends coach that they promoted, that Marcus Freeman promoted up. I think there could be some kinks, though. It's an interesting game across country, week 0. Navy had success. Same coach is still there. Give me the under 49 here. I feel confident in all 4 of those bets. I'll put them out on social media. Thank me later. But that's it for today's show, man. We covered a lot. We started off, we got football this week in week 0. Maason Smith, the NCAA just being a complete clown show, suspended Maason Smith for signing autographs 2 weeks before NIL went into effect in July 1st, 2021. What a freaking joke. Georgia's backfield just losing complete depth. It'll be interesting. We haven't even played a full snap yet. We got Branton Robinson out for the year, Kendall Milton banged up, Dejon Edwards banged up. Guys like Cash Jones and Leonard Whitehead are going to step up for that Georgia backfield. Clock rules. Remember, just reminding you, when you're making your bets, picking games this year, NFL rules, the clock no longer stops on first downs, only under 2 minutes at the end of the second and fourth quarters. Keep that in mind when you're making your picks and bets this year. Swamp Kings, gave you my thoughts. I don't think it was as bad as people thought it was. Would have liked to see a little bit more some of the other players, Percy Harvin, Pouncey twins, guys I mentioned. Would also like to see a little bit more behind the scenes of when Urban Meyer started really falling off after the 2009 SEC championship game to Alabama, that 2010 season and all. Overall, though, I thought it was really done. My 2 favorite episodes were episode 1 and 4. Watch it, tweet at me, tell me if you agree. And then we got Mike G on. Give us some Auburn information. There's a lot of confidence in Auburn right now. Program's probably at the best it's been really since, it's like Mike said, probably in the prime Tommy Tuberville years from 2004, 2005 era. But again, Mike G, go follow him. Does a great job with an Auburn fan site with the War Rapport. Great guest. Appreciate Mike coming on. And then I gave you the Vandy Hawaii breakdown. I got the Doors winning it, taking it home. And then I gave you my gambling picks again. I like Vanderbilt minus 17.5, over 55 for the game. USC minus 18.5 first half. And I think it's going to be a low score and a fair over in Ireland and Dublin to be specific. I like the Notre Dame Navy game under 49. It's here, guys. We have finally made it. Week 0 football. The next time I'll be talking to you, we will be reviewing a game. We'll also be talking about the week 1 labor games when things really get started. But again, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mock 10 Sports. Have a great weekend.